Are you ready?
Starting now?
Well, now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. When we started, we were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this, man. You know, shoot our wad into the wind and see what happens. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Our fucking faces are everywhere now.
Right.
You know, but
You're welcome, ladies.
Right. Popular with the ladies.
Right.
Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now.
All right, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And this is still season 2. We didn't switch over to any additional seasons yet, but we are on episode 28, and we do have our next and second, and I'm going to say again, real guest with us tonight. We've got Gio. We'll go ahead and let him introduce himself. We've done some promoting on him throughout the week, so hopefully you guys have an idea of who he is. He's got a book. He's sober, does a lot of other things, or been sober for a little bit, got a lot of other things going on. So we got quite a bit to talk about. He's going to give us a little bit of background, how he got to where we are, what he's doing now, and then obviously we want to talk about his book. So first of all, Gio, welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on with us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, man. It's an honor and privilege to be on here with you guys.
Cool. Thanks, man.
An honor and a privilege. I don't think we've heard that yet, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man.
I don't think anyone's been honored or privileged to be even around us, let alone on here. So thank you. We appreciate your niceness. You might add a little bit of spice of nice to all this stuff.
Right.
So
listen, anytime we're promoting recovery, it's an honor and a privilege.
Absolutely.
You know what, that's a good point. So, well, go ahead. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe sobriety date, a little bit of your background. If we interrupt you, it's because we have questions, obviously. But go ahead, give us a start off.
The floor is yours.
Yes.
All right. So my name's Gio. I go by my nickname Gio. My first and last name is Justin Giovinazzo, and the reason I got my nickname Gio is here in South Florida. When I moved here, it was a very southern town, and they had trouble pronouncing my last name, so they just called me Gio for short, and it stuck with me. My sobriety date is January 20th, 2015. I got sober through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and working the 12 steps with my sponsor. So I don't talk too much about the war stories, but I will kind of touch on it a little bit and just to kind of what got me into recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So 14, I started drinking daily. I remember drinking a little bit before here and there and sneaking beers, but I don't really remember my first drunk. I just remember around the age of 14, I just started drinking daily. Just like the Alcoholics Anonymous book says, I drink essentially because I like the effects produced by alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, not only am I an alcoholic, but I'm also an addict. And at the age of 14, I got into a car accident and they prescribed me opiates. So, whenever I tell my story, I don't really know what came first, the chicken or the egg, with my addiction or my alcoholism.
Right.
But to me, it's one disease.
Yep.
And, from that age of 14, my progression got really bad really fast. Looking back now, I see that I was an alcoholic from the very beginning. I tried stopping a few times. When I was 18, I had a son, and my son's mother, she tried to limit my alcoholism and my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I see the second part of step 1 kick in my life, because somebody's trying to control my addiction and my alcoholism, and I became miserable.
Sure.
I didn't understand at the time why, but by reading the doctor's opinion, it gave me an explanation. Um, I ended up causing that relationship, to go down the drain because I was miserable. And, as soon as she broke up with me, back off to the races. And this time nobody's controlling my alcoholism. And I ended up getting in trouble with the law and I got sent to prison. And, while I was there, I blamed it on my drug addiction. And I turned 21 in prison, and I kept remember saying, I'm never going to do drugs again, and I'm never going to sell drugs again, but I turned 21 in here, so when I get out, I deserve to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I get out of prison, and I'm on probation. And, it starts off with just drinking, and then it goes to other substances. And, first day out of prison, it was just back off to the races. And this time I'm on probation and I'm trying to, cheat the drug test. And needless to say, I ended up violating that probation 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first 2 times were slaps on the wrist. The second time they sent me to a Christian, rehab program. It was a 6-month program.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, that was like right around the time I first was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. But once again, I went in there, and my perception was I'm just an addict. If I can control my drug addiction, I could drink like a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard that before once or twice.
Right.
Yeah. So, that was just I was very naive. So I'd go into the rooms and I would halfway listen, and they wanted me to get a sponsor. And I remember walking up to this old timer and I asked him to sponsor me, and he looked at me and he said, well, I'm going to give you my number. He goes, but you're not going to call me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call you. I promise. I'll call you tomorrow. And tomorrow comes, and I'm like, I'm not calling.
Right.
I could do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing a 4th step because the pastor of the program would come check to see if we had the steps done, and he'd look at our step work. And I don't know how he let me slide, but I did my own version of the 4th step, and I showed him what I did. And he just looked at me and he smirked and he gave me back my notebook and he said, okay.
Right.
I kind of wish he would have held me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I graduated that program, it was back off to the races. I thought, just drinking would work. Of course it didn't. And needless to say, I lasted for a little while kind of beating the system with with probation and beating the drug test. And during that time, I met my second son's mother. And she gets, pregnant with my son. And I'm hiding it, I'm hiding my addiction and my alcoholism from everybody, and I'm not letting anybody see how bad it is. And, of course, we don't do that well for too long.
Right.
And my boss was the first one to notice. And at that time, I had crossed over to IV drug use.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to probation, and it's summertime, and I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. And as soon as I get past the door, and the door shuts and locks, the probation officer, she grabs me and she pulls up my sleeves, and she sees the track marks, and she's like, "Listen, your boss called, and we're gonna get you help. You're going back to prison." And I ran out of there. I ran out of that probation office, and I had to do the walk of shame, and I had to tell my son's mother what was going on. And we ran down to Miami for a little bit, and I worked and saved some money up. And, of course, they found me one day. And this time I did 27 months in prison.
Oof.
And while I was in there, I had been to this county jail a few times, but this time they had a drug program. So I signed up for the drug program, and it was more like a therapeutic community type place.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about the steps, and they did like the tough love approach. And so I got like a little bit of knowledge of the steps, but they gave me a false perception is basically if, I completed that 90-day program and I got that paper certificate, that was going to keep me sober.
Aha.
And I was really naive, and, we always want the easier, softer way.
Right.
And I, was expecting that to work. And while I'm in there, I get the 27 months, so I get transferred to prison, my son's mother ends up leaving me. And while I was in there, I was like, you know what? Drugs cost my family again. Drugs got me here in prison again. So when I get out, it's not going to be drugs, but I'm going to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And first day out, it starts with alcohol, then it's back on drugs.
Sure.
This time I'm not on probation, so it's, I'm running really hard. I remember one day waking up and I was like, you know what? I cannot get sober. And this is going to be my life, so I might as well be the best functioning addict and alcoholic I could be. And from that point forward, I gave up on life.
Right.
I ended up getting with a girl, and she was like a good girl that kind of dabbled, and she drank, and she liked to go out to like the bars and nightclubs here in Florida. And she got introduced to my world, and she went downhill quick. So her family ended up stepping in, and they told her that if she didn't go to treatment, that they were going to take her kids away. So she used to work in a hospital, so she had really good insurance. And, I tell her, I'm like, listen, there's hope for you. There's no hope for me. I am doomed. This is going to be the way it is for the rest of my life. I've tried recovery twice. It didn't work, but, there's hope for you. And she went to treatment, and I went out, and I, got obliviated, and I ended up getting arrested. And while I was in jail, she started writing me, and she started telling me about this treatment center that she was at, and she started telling me about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps, and she started telling me how great things were. And I remember getting like a little bit of hope that it may be possible for me. My dad ended up bonding me out right around Thanksgiving, and by that time she was back living around us, and she was in sober living, and she was going to meetings, and she had a sponsor in a home group. And I started going to these meetings with her. So at that time, I had never been to a young person of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I had been, mostly around old timers, and I knew that you couldn't talk about drug addiction. And I walk into these rooms, and these people, they're talking about alcohol, but some of them are talking about their cross addiction too. Before the meeting, I hear them talking. So I start going up to these, these people, and I'm asking them, I'm like, so you're an alcoholic and an addict? And they're saying, yes. And, how many years do you have sober? And I remember one guy told me 3. And I'm like, you're 3 years sober? I'm like, do you struggle with cravings? And he tells me no. And I'm like, are you happy in sobriety? And he tells me yes. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. Needless to say, they told me to get a home group, get a sponsor. So I got a home group, and I was dragging my feet getting a sponsor. I remember I had my eyes on this guy for 3 weeks, and I slacked getting him. And finally, I worked up enough nerve one night, and I go up to him, and I ask him to sponsor me, and he says yes. And he's seen my face, and he's like, what'd you think I was going to say no? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, it's like getting turned down for a date or something like that.
Exactly.
Seriously, that's what it felt like when somebody says you got to go out and ask another man to be your sponsor. Mike and I joked about that. It's like asking somebody to be your Valentine,
Yes, exactly.
It's a weird concept, but that's good. So obviously he said yes.
So you got a sponsor.
So yeah,
right.
Yes. Yeah, he said yes, and then I was, he's seen my relief in my face, and then I told him, I was like, I waited 3 weeks to ask you. And then he said something that was very vital, and I carry on with me to this day. But he looked at me and he said, you just wasted 3 weeks. You could have been getting into the book.
I saw that one coming.
Yep, me too.
But you know what? He was very right. And, I remember sitting down with him sometime during that week, and we read the doctor's opinion. And I remember he asked me, he's like, what did you get from that? And I looked at him and I said, to be honest with you, I have no clue what you even said. And, he's like, that's okay. We'll go back through it. I'll keep teaching you. But around that time, that obsession kicked in. And I wish I would have been a little bit more focused, but I wasn't. And, I started obsessing and craving. And I was scared to tell anybody because I felt like they were going to look at me as like I was weak. And I ended up relapsing one day, and I hid it from everybody. And you guys know, once you pick up that first one, you start craving, the allergy's active now. And also the guilt and the shame and the dishonesty was eating me alive, and I ended up giving in again, and I relapsed, and this time everybody finds out.
Right.
And I had to be honest. And, I'll never forget the girl that I was dating, the look on her face. I watched all the hope drain from her face when she found out. And needless to say, she was using with me a week later.
Wow.
Yeah, I took her out. And me and her never stopped going to meetings. I kept going, but once that allergy was active and I was back into the beast of it, it had a hold on me.
Right.
And I joke about it to this day, but I went to 3 meetings in one day, and I picked up a white chip at every meeting. I went to a noon meeting.
Wow.
I picked up a white chip. Yeah. I wanted it, but it was very hard to break that cycle without detox. And I went to that noon meeting. I picked up a white chip, and I left, and I got drunk, and I went to a 5:30 meeting, and I picked up a white chip, and I left and got high, and then I went to a 7 o'clock meeting, and I picked up another white chip, and then I left and got high.
Damn.
And they told me just keep coming back, keep coming back.
Right.
Needless to say, I felt like people were treating me different, and looking back now was just my own insecurities. But, I end up relapse. I'm in the relapse mode, and I commit crimes, and I'm on bonds, and I get locked up again. And while I'm in there, I know I'm not getting out. I'm stuck in there, and I sign up for that drug program that they had. And this time I go back to that drug program, and it's different. One of the counselors was a strong AA, and he knew the big book really well. And he starts, teaching us stuff, and I'm learning, and I'm like, he started teaching me the doctor's opinion, and I'm understanding things a little bit, but there's still that little fear that maybe I won't get it. While I was in there, my lawyer comes and sees me, and she's like, listen, I got your deal from the state attorney. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And she's like, well, this is your 3rd time going to prison, and in the state of Florida, they have a 3 strikes you're outlaw, and you're going to get 30 years day for day habitual felony offender.
Oh, wow.
And I look at her. Well, before I look at her, I remember in my mind, I'm like, wow, my addiction took me too far this time. And, I tried talking to her, and she's like, there's no talking. This is what it is. And I go back to the dorm, and the first person I call is the girlfriend. And she's like, listen, we have to have a talk. And I'm like, yes, we do. And she's like, my sponsor said that me and you are toxic, and I need to leave you. And I'm like, well, good, because I'm getting 30 years. And I hang up on her, and then I call my parents. So my mom's not talking to me at this time, but my dad's always been there for me.
Right.
And my mom answers, and she's talking to me, and she's like, listen, I don't know what your lawyer just called here. She talked to your dad. I don't know what she told your dad, but your dad had a heart attack while she was on the phone with her, and your dad's in the ambulance going to the hospital. She's like, you probably killed your dad. Don't call back here ever again.
Shit.
And
wow.
And she hangs up on me. And now I'm like, okay, I have one phone call left, and it's my youngest son's mother. And I call her, and she answers, and she's like, listen, I just hung up with your other son's mother, and both of the kids are acting out at home, and they're acting out at school, and you did this because you're going back to prison. She's like, don't call back here till you get your life together. And she hangs up on me. And it hits me. I'm like, my addiction took me too far this time. There's no coming back. I'm getting 30 years, and everybody's given up on me. And I always said I would never commit suicide, but I'm walking up the steps to go to my room, and I'm thinking about killing myself. Anyways, they have count time from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, so we're locked in the room, and at 8 o'clock the doors pop, and they have an AA meeting. So, I go down there, and my sponsor now, he was the one that was running that meeting.
Nice.
And, he's talking to us, and I raised my hand. And this was the first time I ever got honest in Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I let everybody know how I'm hurting, and I'm thinking about killing myself and what's going on. And afterwards, somebody shared, and they were going through the same thing. That gave me some connection. Anyways, after that, my sponsor, he came up to me, and he said, hey, what do you think about meeting every Wednesday in the chapel, and I'll take you through the 12 steps. I said yes. Anyways, the next week rolls around, and it's a Monday, and the counselor walks in, and someone says, hey, what are we doing for group today? And he says, well, it's powerlessness week. And then somebody else says, why are we devoting a whole week to step 1? And he says, because if you could do step 1 and you could program the fact that you're powerless in your head, and you do it 100%, he said, I guarantee you'll never drink and drug again.
Nice.
Very nice.
And when he said that, it was so profound to me. So I raised my hand, and I said, so you're telling a hardcore junkie like me that if I do this step 100%, I'll never drink and drug again. And he leaned in, he's about a few feet from my face, and he's making eye contact with me, and he says yes.
It sounds like that story that Mike and I had. Yes,
Right.
The simplest answer for
It is
at
that
whatever
simple.
time.
Okay. But you guys know, we could tell a liar and manipulator, and he meant business. So I told him, I said, I'll pay attention all week, and I'm going to give it 100%. So, Wednesday rolls around, and I start step 1 with my sponsor, and we're going through it, and I tell him what we're working on with the counselor. But my step 1 experience was not with my sponsor; it was with that counselor. Because as he's sitting there reading the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I always considered myself just a drug addict, and I always thought that one day I can handle my alcohol consumption. And I'm like, wow, I drank like this. Wow, I drank like this. So I raised my hand, and I'm like, hey, I drink just like this, but I'm not an alcoholic. I'm an addict.
Right.
And he starts asking me questions. He's like, so, what usually happens when you drink? I'm like, well, I drink to black out. Isn't that the only way to drink?
Right.
Right.
And he's like, what else? And I'm like, well, every time I try to stop doing drugs and I drink, I'm like, the alcohol brings me back to drugs every time.
Sure.
And he looks at me and he goes, you're an alcoholic.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, I'm sitting in a jail and I'm facing 30 years. Everybody gave up on me, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, and I have to work a program of recovery for the rest of my life. And with all that turmoil going on in my life, I felt peace.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
That moment of acceptance, as they say, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's complete surrender.
Yep.
And, I told my sponsor about that. And, of course, he pounded step 1 into me. We go on to step 2. At that time, I was raised Catholic. I converted to Christianity in my first prison sentence. It was more like a jailhouse religion.
Right.
But I was so conflicted about what God was. And I did not think that God was going to get me sober. But, my sponsor said, hey, do you believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity? And I looked at him and I lied and I said yes. Just so I could move on to step 3.
Right.
And looking back now, I wanted it to happen, but I was just scared that it wouldn't happen for me. And anyways, we get to step 3, and he tells me, hey, go kick your roommates out of your jail cell and hit your knees and say the 3rd step prayer. So I do, and as soon as I got done doing the 3rd step prayer, I remember getting up. I'm like, did anything change? Did anything happen to me? And then all of a sudden, I just started kind of meditating on it, and I realized I had a little bit of hope in God. We get to step 4. I had a little bit of recovery in me prior, so I know a lot of people relapse because they don't do step 4.
Right.
So I was thorough and honest, like the book said. And I put everything down, and then came time for the scary part for me, which was my 5th step. And,
Us too.
yeah. So my sponsor's got like 30 years, and I have a little bit over 7, and he's like in his 60s, and I'm like in my late 30s, and I'm the junkie alcoholic, and he's just an alcoholic. So I'm like, he's not going to understand me, and he's going to judge me. And
Ego.
I remember going there. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Big time.
Right.
Big time. And I remember going in there, and they gave us an hour in the chapel to do it. And it took like an hour and 15 minutes. I remember the officer stayed in there the last 15 minutes trying to rush us. But as soon as I got done, my sponsor looked at me and he said, is that it? And I said, yes. And he goes, are you sure? And I said, yes. And then he looked at me and he says, well, the good news is that I forgive you, and so does God. Right then and there, I had a white light spiritual awakening. I didn't feel it because as soon as we got done, the officer grabbed my arm and picked me up, and he's like, I gave you guys an extra 15 minutes, and he's like, I have to get you back to the dorm because I have to bring someone else up to the chapel. So he's like rushing me down the hallway, and I remember as I'm walking through the hallway, the walls were glowing like a fluorescent white, and I look at the officer, I'm like, did you guys just paint the walls? And he's like, no, why? And I'm like, the walls, they're glowing. And I'll never forget, he gave me this look like basically, what kind of psych meds are you on?
Right.
So I went back and I did the hour of meditation, and I met my sponsor again. We went over 6 and 7. He stressed the importance of 6 and 7. We got to step 8. Now, I knew I was going to prison, so when it came to step 9, he told me, these ones you can make phone calls when they do answer your call. These ones you could write letters to. These ones you got to make face-to-face amends when you get out. These ones I want you to pray for 30 days. These ones are living, and these ones are financial. So I started right away. I started writing all my letters. I think we waited for a letter or two to come back. We went through 10. He showed me the importance of 10. He showed me the importance of 11, and then we get to 12. And as soon as we get done reading the chapter, working with others, we shut the book, and I look at him, and I'm like, what now? And he goes, he's like, what do you mean, what now? He goes, now you go sponsor men. And I'm like, I'm an inmate. Like, I'm going to prison. Who's going to want me to sponsor them? And he says, don't worry, me and Chaplain Dave are going to get together every Wednesday, and we're going to pray for God to put people in your life that you can help. Chaplain Dave is my sponsor, spiritual advisor, and they've prayed that prayer every day for a little over 7 years, every Wednesday.
Right.
And that prayers came true. So we'll fast forward a little bit. The lawyer comes and sees me, and she tells me that she got him down to 10 years, and I tell her I'm not taking it, and they have an emergency hearing, and they rush me off to court, and I'm standing in front of the judge, and I made the state attorney mad because I didn't take the 10 years. And he walks up to the judge, and he gives him the paper to give me the 30 years. And the judge, he asked me if I had anything to say, and I start telling him, for once in my life, I'm finally changing my life, and I'm in AA, and I did the 12 steps, and I'm sponsoring other men, and I'm doing this. And I just spoke from the heart, but I also took accountability. I said, I'm guilty of these crimes, and I'm willing to take whatever punishment you give me, but I'm just begging you to have leniency on me.
Right.
And the judge takes a recess, and he comes back, and he looks at me, and he goes, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to give you 6 years in prison followed by 4 years probation, 10-year sentence of habitual felony offender.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, like that's the most time I've ever gotten in prison, and I'm going to be gone for 5 years. But I remember feeling peace, and I'm like, am I shocked? And I remember the ladies doing my fingerprints, and I'm like, am I shocked or what's going on? And I heard it perfect, as clear as day in my own head, and it said, no matter what you go through, God's going to be with you. You're going to be okay. And so think about it. In the beginning, I didn't think God would get me sober, but here it is. I'm going to face 5 years in prison, and my thought process changed, and it says, no matter what you go through, God's going to be with you. Needless to say, I get sent to prison. I got to a pretty good prison. I jumped into Alcoholics Anonymous right away. I started sponsoring guys. I had 3 sponsees while I was in there. I started chairing the meetings. I wrote a couple articles for the Grapevine magazine.
Nice.
I started group facilitating. They had this IOP drug program. And I went in there, and it was just to get my hours, so when I got out, I could work in treatment. And I start teaching this program, and I find out that, I'm really good at it. And one of the counselors there told someone else my story, and it gets back to this lady who runs this basically like a college program, and she tells them she wants to get me certified while I'm in there. So then came the part with the financial obligation, and I wrote this company, and they paid for me, no questions asked. So I was in there, and I taught this program for 16 months, and one day the counselors all walk in, and they hand me my CAC, which is a certified addictions counselor.
Right.
And that gives me the opportunity to work in a treatment center when I get out.
Nice.
Needless to say, I ended up doing 4 years in the prison, and my last year they sent me to a prison work release, which is kind of like a halfway house. I get connected with my sponsor right again. He got permission every Friday to take me to meetings. And then I get released. And when I get released, I jump right in this time. Because the last 2 times I get out, and the first day I mess up.
Right.
I get out right away. I find a home group. My second month at that home group, I'm chairing that home group. And by chairing that home group, everybody's getting to know me, and I'm meeting a bunch of people. I get my dream job in treatment. And while I'm working in treatment, COVID kicks in. And all of a sudden, all these meetings are shutting down all over.
Right.
And me and another friend, we jumped in and we started a bunch of meetings. We started a big one at a park that was 7 days a week. The sheriffs gave us permission, the local sheriffs around here, to have the meeting. And back then I think it was like you couldn't have more than 10 people in a, around. and we'd have like 50, 60 people at this meeting, and the sheriffs didn't care because we were doing something good.
Right.
Nice.
And we started. There was one clubhouse that stayed open. We started a bunch of meetings there. So every night of the week there was a meeting, and we just we'd helped as many people as we could.
Right.
While all that's going on, my dad comes home one day and he tells me that he has stage 4 lung cancer. And that was really hard for me. But I watched the strongest man that I know. I watched him dwindle down to become a very weak and fragile person.
Mm-hmm.
And one night I'm working in treatment, I get the phone call that he's dead. And the last thing my aunt said to me before I left work was, "Don't speed. Drive the speed limit, get here like we have it under control." And I didn't listen to her. I'm doing 90 into 45 on US 1. And I'm calling like everybody in my support. I'm calling them and I'm calling and I'm doing what they said, and no one's answering. And I'm getting resentful because no one's answering when I need them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I reflect back to prison, because in prison it was just me, God, and my big book.
Mm-hmm.
And I throw my phone in the passenger seat and I start praying, and this peace came over me, and I realized, I'm like, he's gone. I have to accept it. He's not in pain no more, and I need to be there for my family. And I started driving the speed limit, and I got there. And for the first time in my life, I got to be there for my mom. I got to be there for my sister. I got to be there for my kids and her kids, and my aunt was there. And I got to be the man of the family.
Right. So how long were you sober at that point?
A little over 5 years.
Okay. Was that the first the first major death that you had at that point?
So yes.
Okay.
And I had been in prison, so I had that's another thing, is adjusting to the streets as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm adjusting, and as I started adjusting, COVID's going on, and then boom, a major loss.
Right.
But you know what? I stayed sober through
Right.
it. They told me to go to meetings every day, so I went to meetings every day. They told me to, help the newcomer. I helped the newcomer. I grabbed a couple extra sponsees. I did everything. I stayed connected, and there was times where I was cursing God out because I was grieving, and there was times where I was praising God because I knew my dad wasn't in pain no more.
Mm-hmm.
But little by little, I got through it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You continue to do what we're supposed to do, and they tell us, man, we can do anything, including go through some miserable things. But if we continue to do what we're supposed to do, we can do it, even when we think we can't.
Yeah, and you know what? I did not think about a drink or a drug, any time through it. There was times where I didn't want to feel what I was feeling, but I didn't turn, I didn't have any thoughts of using alcohol or drugs.
Well, see, and that's the amazing part too. That and I don't know how much you've listened to our episodes or some of the ramblings back and forth, but my dad passed away before I got sober, and I was a train wreck. My stepdad died after I got sober, and I could handle it. And then another family member died, and other people that we knew, and the ability to, again, to cope with these things, as Mike just said, we can deal with anything. But on top of that too, being able to turn to somebody, that you were never able to have around before. And like you said, feeling where you want the pain to go away. But what we do now is we go talk to somebody.
Right.
we don't inject something or ingest something into our body to make it go away. So it was night and day, and it was a matter of a year and 3 months between when my dad died and my stepdad died.
Oh, wow.
So I was only a year and 2 months sober when he died, when my stepdad died. But the difference in that was amazing. Mike was there. I mean, Mike and I have been friends pretty much for freaking ever.
Mm-hmm.
But so, well, I mean, since we got sober, we didn't know each other prior. But so Mike was there, but he's the one that got me up to a meeting, and then we had all these other people and people there around us, and the support you talk about, it's mind blowing, for again, just a small amount of time. And I mean, Mike, we've had, how many good friends, that we've had pass?
Yeah. Dozens. Yeah.
And it's terrible, and I'm sure, Gio, you've got to see it with what you do too. I mean, and, in your line of work, right?
Yeah. That's actually, it seems like it happens a lot, and I ended up with the clients that they're going through it, and I get to be there and help them.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when my dad passed away, there was 3 male clients in 1 week that their dad had cancer, and they found out that week their dad had cancer. And then my dad had passed away like a week later. And I remember I was walking into work one day, and the HR lady, as soon as she seen me, she apologized, and she's telling me how sorry she is for my loss. And one of the clients, I seen him out of the corner of my eye. He was eavesdropping, and then he ran. So he tells all the clients. And I go into the group room, and I'm trying to put that game face on. Mm-hmm. And as I start the group, one of the clients looks at me, and he's like, "When were you going to tell me?" And I'm like, "Tell you what?" And he's like, "When were you going to tell me that your dad died?" And it just hit me. Like, I wanted to start crying. And I opened up, and I was transparent, and I told him, what I was going through. And, afterwards, the guys that were struggling with their dad having cancer, they came up to me, and they're like, "How are you being so strong right now?" And I said, "Honestly, I do not know. The only answer I can give you is God and AA."
Right.
So do you have like a dog chewing on your leg back there?
Yeah, no, sorry, and that's why I didn't want to be home in the apartment.
No, it's fine. It's cool because here's the thing is that the things that have gone on with our since we started doing this, and this is episode 28. There's probably been 100 different things like that. So when something happens, I'm like, we just talk about it. I'm like, I had to listen for a minute. I'm like, is that a car? Is that this? Then I'm like, it sounds like a dog is attacking your leg. But no, that's cool. What's your dog's name?
Harley.
Harley.
Hey,
No
Harvey.
Yeah, she's named. So actually, my girl's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous too, and her dad died a year ago, and her dad loved Harley Davidson. Yeah. So we actually had his dog, and his dog died like 2 months after he did, and she was my girl was taking it really bad. So, we got another puppy, and she named it Harley after her dad.
Okay,
nice.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm staying at my sister's at the moment, just down here to help take care of our mom and stuff like that. So she has 3 dogs, 2 Shih Tzus who bark at their shadow, every once in a while, and then she's got a German Shepherd she's a little over a year old, year and a couple of months, and great dog, but rambunctious as fuck. And,
So that's how this one is.
Well, and what happens sometimes, a lot of times that either whether they're downstairs or upstairs, Mike said it a couple of times. He's like, "Yeah," he goes, "I heard the dogs barking. I got big old like stereo headphones on, so I can't hear it. But yeah, every once in a while we get the dogs barking in the background. So again, nothing to apologize for. I'm just like, since we hear it, might as well talk about it. Why not, man?
Right.
Plus, it's a cool name. It's Harley, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so that's funny because I got the headphones in and I can hear it, in the background. I'm like, I hope they can't hear it.
It's not a big deal. We're fine with that. Like I said, we've had probably at least 100 different things pop up. So,
and and so getting back to the stories you were telling. Okay, so you have these bad experiences, these heartbreaking experiences, but you're taking them and turning them around and helping and using them to help other people. It's same with our drinking and our drugging and everything else. All the garbage that we went through has value now because we take it, we use it to help other people. So I can look back at all the shit I did in my life, and yes, I was an awful person. But I could take those experiences and help somebody else and show them that it's okay, man. I don't have the shame and the guilt anymore of what a piece of crap I was, A, because I'm not that person anymore and I'm not doing those things anymore, and B, that they're useful experiences. And and that's exactly what you were saying. I just wanted to, kind of clarify that a bit. Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's kind of like the basis of what my book's about too. Because everybody kept telling me like how powerful my story is and how helpful it is. And, somebody early on told me true gratitude is when you could look back at life and you could be grateful for the bad things because the bad things got you to where you're at.
We talk about that all the time. And,
right.
Oh, really?
All the time. Yeah.
Definitely.
I tell my clients that all the time too.
Well, because
it's
and
true.
what Mike just said exactly.
Real quick, man. Have we even mentioned the title of the book yet? I don't think we have. I'm sitting here looking at a copy of it. So, Gio, go ahead, man. Plug away.
Okay, so the name of the title is Fear. Face Everything and Rise.
Right.
And it's available on Amazon. We know that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you got a website?
I currently do not have the website. It's I guess up at being created, I should say.
Gotcha.
As we speak, I have a few other things in the work, and I'm working on a workbook to go with that.
Cool.
So I've been kind of like stalling, I guess, on the website. I probably should get it up though.
Well, you know what I'll do, Gio. I mean, obviously I've included, of course, the picture of the book and the fact that it's on Amazon, and hopefully people can find it that way. But what I can do too, Mike and I have a sponsor page on our website. So after all said and done, I'll put a picture of the book. I'll put, if you want to send me like whatever bio you want for it, I'll put that up there. I think I can link your Instagram page for now, and then once you get your website up, then just let me know, and I'll link your website, so then it'll be on ours too. And the thing of it is, what we're doing with that sponsor page, the only things we have up there right now are the Keating Center, which is where we went through. We still have Mike's radio gig up there, but that's fine. The radio station we're supporters of. And then anyone who wants like things like this, I mean, we don't get a ton of traffic. Our website is not this high traffic website, but it's an opportunity. And if people visit our website, they can see it. Hopefully they'll click through, if nothing else, back to your Instagram. And once you get your website up, then we're more than happy to keep it up there. It's just something we want to be able to do with people. So.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it, guys. And also too, my book, I'm doing a promotion on my book for the month of September because it's Recovery Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And the book's half price on Kindle, but due to how much it costs to manufacture, it's a few dollars less on paperback.
Okay.
Nice. Cool.
So did you self-publish, or did you go through somebody, or how did you do that?
Actually, I self-published, and what happened is everybody kept telling me I need to write a book, I need to write a book, I need to write a book. And I put it on the back burner, and finally one day I just had this spark in me, and me and my girlfriend, we went to this psychic fair because she likes the crystals and stuff like that.
Hey, mine too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mike's got one of those people too.
Yeah, I got she's a normie, but she's a witch.
Okay. Yeah, so it's very similar, but my girl's in the program.
Right.
So I take her to this psychic fair, and we go there, and she wanted to talk to a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let her go first, and then afterwards, the psychic's like, do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try.
Sure.
And the first thing that happens is she looks at me and she goes, are you writing a book? And my mouth dropped. And I'm like, how do you know? Because I had started like a paragraph or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how do you know that? And she goes, actually, you're going to have 3 books. And she goes, the second one's going to be a workbook. And as soon as she said that, I knew she had psychic abilities. And then she's like, the third's going to be similar, but it's going to be something far off, or a little off. And she's like, you need to publish this book now. And I promise, I no lie, a week later, I'm on Facebook, and one of my friends, she self-published a book about poetry. And I reach out to her, and she tells me how to do it. And I took a week away from the world, and I went back to my mom's house. And I went to my old bedroom, and I just sat on my laptop, and it was like I downloaded the book. It just came together.
Nice.
And I'm an amateur writer, so I mean, maybe it's not the best in some people's eyes, but, I've gotten really good feedback, and it's helped a lot of people. Even, I kind of wrote it for the recovery community, but I've had normal people, message me on Facebook or get my number from somebody or my email's in the book and write me and tell me how much it's helped them, and then, kind of ask me some more questions on how to break down fears and work through trauma. And it's I think back to my sponsor and Chaplain Dave praying that prayer, and for God to put people in my life I can help.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I didn't read every word, but I certainly went through most of the book, and yeah, it's cool, man. I really liked. It's very conversational, but every I would say most paragraphs, there's something in there that's either from the big book or the program or something indirectly.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So that's another thing too, is I didn't know if I could quote the big book or if I'd get in trouble. But the big book, basically, the big book was like where all my healing took place.
Right.
And,
Right.
Specifically the fear inventory.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody taught me like a really thorough fear inventory, I was a few years sober.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and I worked on some stuff and I traced it. It's crazy because I traced it all the way back to childhood stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then I seen the correlation between a fear inventory and when I'm working with the client doing trauma work.
Right.
And I was like, wow, how has nobody kind of like put this together? How they're very similar.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe people have, and I just didn't know that.
Well, and here's the other thing too, and like Mike just said, it was conversational and bits and pieces of things like that. Now, what I'm going to say right now is a compliment. It's not going to sound like it, but it's a compliment, okay? I'm prefacing this because I feel like we're all friends here after 44 minutes. But Mike and I, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, normally despise when people go through the steps in their story. But
Right.
you, speaking of conversational, I couldn't figure out the right way to put it until he just said that. You walked through the entire 12 steps while having a conversation with us, and it was very cool. So,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, we're two guys that we're not about that. We've talked about a couple of steps here and there, and we've even joked about it. That's the most, complete or whatever type of detail people are going to get on the steps from us. But
Right.
Okay.
honestly, Gio, you did a nice job in that, and it was helpful, and you made it relatable. And again, parts of the book that I read, same deal, not cover to cover, but I felt the same way. So my opinion is, I mean, you've got something there, and from a Kindle standpoint or a paperback, and I get it. That's why I asked if you self-published. Because I did a couple of things business related a few years ago. It's the same deal. There's only a certain amount that you could discount it on the paper book. The Kindle one, they'd almost give it away because it's digital.
Yes. So I think right now you could buy it for $3.99, but it's a free promotion going on right now. I don't have a Kindle, so I'm not really familiar, but I'm pretty sure it's free this month.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's cool.
Nice.
But yeah, by all means, like I said, definitely shoot me whatever you want for a bio, and I'll do that. I'll take the picture of the book, or you tell me what you want us to put on our sponsor page. And if you want, our website is just SoberNotMature.com. Take a look at the sponsor page. You'll see how we have things set up. And however you want it to appear, we'll do it that way. It's pretty simple. And then we can have a link. I'm pretty sure. I don't see why I can't link your Instagram page, but I'll check it out and I'll make sure that works. If not, worst case scenario, I'll mention it in there. And then when you get your website up, we can shoot your website link in there. Okay.
Thank you. That means a lot.
It's cool.
I really appreciate
Like
that.
I said, I mean, all of this stuff that we're doing in this, I just got, right before we got on here, about 15 minutes prior, some guy had posted on Instagram, he was selling T-shirts, and I looked at it. First thing in my head, I'm like, "Ooh, a competitor." but then you know what I did? I shared his post in our story, so I promoted him. His T-shirts. I'm like, I don't care. It's a recovery thing. And he sent me a message back. He's like, oh my God, thank you. I'm like, we're all in this together, man. I don't care.
Yep.
If somebody wants one of our T-shirts, great. If somebody wants one of his, that's great. If somebody wants, to buy your book or promote you, or we promote, it doesn't matter. That's kind of what. Well, Mike, when we first started this, and you're probably better off telling this because you had zero expectations than I did.
Right. Yeah, and I still don't, but again, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, man, I have a small expectation now, about half an expectation, and only because of the feedback we've gotten that somehow us rambling into these microphones is helping somebody. Wow, cool. That's that's all I can ask for.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my sponsor told me a long time ago, if you just help one person, you did your job.
Yep.
Well, and seriously, to begin with, when we started doing this, we're like, it was kind of something new. It was another level of, I felt definitely like I was lacking something in my recovery, in my program, and COVID, I think, threw everyone off. But regardless, it was something like, oh, this is kind of cool. But on top of that, I mean, Mike and I are really good friends. I mean, really good friends. We're family, but we, over the years, even for the last, when did I move back to Wisconsin? 2013. So we're talking almost 10 years ago.
Right.
We don't talk a lot. We see each other a few different times a year. Now we get to talk, and joke the one time I get to talk to my friend Mike every week.
Right.
And it was just the whole thing. We were just going to tell stories, and now it's like we don't share stories with each other anymore. We just talk about them on here because who knows, And I mean, because seriously, like you
Yeah.
said, whether it's one person or if nobody listens, that's fine. I mean, yeah, I watch how our podcast does. I watch the followers. I do all that stuff. But really what it comes down to is just we're out here doing what we do because, as it said, giving it away what was so freely given to us. That's it.
Yep.
Yes.
It's simple.
Exactly.
So, so again, are you working for a treatment facility or a medical facility, or what's the deal there?
So yes, I work for a treatment center in South Florida. My boss is one of us. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night at my home group, I'm giving him his 10-year medallion.
Nice.
I originally started in another treatment center, and treatment's a weird industry.
Right.
Especially if you're working a program. But the place I work now, and it's a total blessing from God. It's all about the clients. It's all about client care.
Mm-hmm.
We do like a holistic approach. We let them find their own way because my sponsor doesn't want to, force anybody to do the 12 steps or charge anybody like for 12 steps when it's for free.
Mm-hmm.
And but all of our clients pretty much go to meetings and they see, us staff there.
Right.
So it's cool. They see like my boss will be there or me or a couple of my coworkers are in the program. And, they always say how cool it is to go to a meeting and, like, actually see us doing it.
Right.
And, I don't know. It gives me purpose, to be at a place like this that's very special, and, not everybody makes it, but,
Right.
A lot do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
it's a great thing to have purpose in this field.
Very cool.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we went through. Mike and I went through a sober living facility, and it wasn't a rehab center. It's strictly, and we say this all the time. It was sober living, and we were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. We were introduced to the meetings and the steps, and there were certain things that were required of us, to do through the program. But basically, what it taught us is how to live and how to be, live and be sober. It taught.
Yes.
I was at 41 years old. Mike was 43. And the
Right.
two of us had gone to up to that point in our life, supposedly, and here's my air quotes for the episode, being adults.
Right.
But we didn't know how to live. So which is crazy. But still.
And that's the same here. The program taught me how to be an adult and how to live life.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, that's the title of my book, Fear. I was so full of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know which way to turn except to drugs and alcohol.
Right. Yeah. Get that 20 minutes of ease and comfort.
Yeah. if that, sometimes it's less.
Right. Oh yeah. I'll be generous.
So you,
Yeah.
and if I remember correctly, you were in, is it New Jersey when you were?
So yes, I was originally in New
Okay.
Jersey. I moved to South Florida when I was 7 years old.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and
Right.
I couldn't remember where, but maybe that was better memory than I had. Have you ever gone back to? Well, let me ask you this. So whether it's New Jersey or other areas, and I've got cousins that live in West Palm Beach. So I was down there. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was, and I hit meetings. I was down there for 3 weeks and hit meetings the entire time. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of the clubs, but there was one not too far away from where they were in West Palm, and then I went down to I can't remember. I traveled around a little bit just to hit different meetings. It was great. And, the setup was a little bit different, than it was in Cleveland, a little bit different than Wisconsin, but very inviting people, from that standpoint. But have you experienced meetings in different areas of the country, and what are your thoughts based on how you were raised in this program?
So, no, I haven't really had the privilege to travel around yet. I do plan on it. So my boss is opening up a facility in Illinois, and
Really?
he told me that today that he wants me to go up there soon and help him. I'm also part of Drug Addicts Anonymous.
Right.
It's think of AA, but we talk about drugs.
Yeah.
We use the big book.
We had to look it up, but yes.
Okay. Okay. I have a very high service commitment here in South Florida for that,
Mm-hmm.
so I do plan on traveling with that. But as far as I have traveled around Florida. And from what I see, I'm very grateful for my community where I'm at because it's very solution based.
Mm-hmm.
It's, they're very welcoming people. The newcomer is, the most important person.
Right.
And majority of every meeting you go to, that they're going to either talk to you before or after if you're a newcomer. And, very big on getting a sponsor and working the steps.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm at in Port St. Lucie, I'm 30 minutes north of West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of treatment centers here, and then we have like a big tourist area here. But we have people come from all over the world, and they tell us there's something special about our area in Florida and the meetings here in the community here. And, I hear it almost every meeting.
Right.
This person will be from this area, and, so I feel real privileged because when I was drinking and drugging here, I didn't see no solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got, I get sober and I'm here, and to see the other side, it's beautiful.
Right. Well, I'll tell you from reading your book, I mean, I'm biased, and I know Bill is too, but, Cleveland AA is kind of a special thing in itself. This is the cradle where, 45 minutes north of Akron where it all started.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's pretty hard. I mean, the oldest men's meeting in the world is here in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And reading your book, I mean, I was kind of surprised that because I was first introduced to the program out in California. And I certainly didn't stick because I didn't do any of the work. But it's California. It's touchy feely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's feelings. And Cleveland is very much we don't care what your feelings are.
Yes.
We don't care how you're feeling. What are you doing? And a bunch of my female friends, their sponsor, she's big here in Cleveland, and she says we're no longer emotionally driven, we're spiritually driven. And
I like that.
Yeah, so do I a lot. And of course I take it and I say, well, it's just basically fuck your feelings. I don't, and it's the way I live my life today. I don't care that I'm angry. I don't care that I'm sad. I don't care that I'm lonely because I still get all that stuff, but I don't let it run my life anymore. What runs my life is the program and the absolutes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And my actions are what are important. We hear all the time, this is a thinking disease, and my thoughts are fucked up, man. And they still are, and they always will be, and I accept that. That's cool, but I don't act on those thoughts anymore. Those thoughts do not rule my life anymore. The spiritual concepts that were taught to me through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what runs my life, and that's what controls my actions today. As long as I allow that to happen, you know what? The people around me aren't hurting, and therefore I don't have guilt and shame because I'm hurting the people around me, and I don't have to medicate myself today. That's it, man. That's it. And that's, again, your book, man. Those points were made over and over, and I was like I said, I was surprised because I knew you were down in Florida, and I was like, wow. That's Cleveland AA, man.
Well, that's really cool because I actually look up to Cleveland AA.
That's great.
We had a couple friends that are from Cleveland and they moved here.
Okay.
But they kind of talked to me about Clarence Snyder and the whole approach that Cleveland had, and get people through the steps and and the way sponsorship was.
Yep. Right.
Another big favorite of mine, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Raymer.
No.
He has so Chris Raymer has a few talks on YouTube, and one of them's Lack of Power. And, he's from Texas, and I really like his approach. They don't water down the solution. He says in his YouTube talk, if anybody's in the meeting talking anything but that's not from AA, and that's, some cliche saying, and it could possibly kill somebody with that false information. He said he'll pull them outside of a meeting and tell them real quick, where's that in the big book? Where's that in our program? Like, where'd you get that from? And that's the approach I tried not to water down the solution, because if I'm going to be a representative of God and bring someone the solution, I want to bring it to him. I want to bring it to him hard and fast, and I don't want to water it down. I don't want to sugarcoat it, and I want to be I guess I'm kind of fluid with certain sponsees. Some of them I can be a little softer, but some of them I'm like just a dick because that's what they need.
You need to be. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
So let me ask you real quick, Gio. Have you ever heard of or been exposed to the absolutes, the 4 absolutes?
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
Okay.
So when I was in prison, you know, I was hungry for any information I could get, and I got my hand on any book I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a lot about the Oxford
Yep.
group,
Mhm.
and I did a study on the 4 absolutes.
Nice.
You know, I think my 3rd year of sobriety.
Cool.
Yeah, because I mean, most people outside of Cleveland don't know about that, and Mike and I talked about that.
Are you
Yeah,
serious?
it's kind of funny, but if you listen back, if you episode 10, which happens to be the absolute vodka bottle, if you take a look at the picture, and again, we take recovery very seriously, but we like to have fun. So I found an absolute vodka bottle and put the absolutes or something on there, whatever it was. But we were down in Akron, and the guy at Dr. Bob's house spent a lot of time with us, and then Mike actually went through and explained how the absolutes and a meeting he went to. And so anyone out there that's listening, if you missed it, and it is it's in our top 5 of most popular episodes. Episode 10 is, and it's important. You know, I mean, it's. So many people, again, outside of Cleveland don't know about it, so that's cool, you know, that you've had that exposure to it.
No, yeah, and so I actually I read a lot too. Like I read that somewhere in Alcoholics Anonymous they didn't keep adopting, you know, the 4 absolutes because I think it was Bill Wilson that said that the bar seemed kind of high and people were beating themselves up because they, you know, like absolute honesty. If your wife asks you if she looks fat in the dress, are you going to tell her yeah because they're absolutes? So I don't know if that's true or not. I read that somewhere, but I tried my best to live by the 4 absolutes for a while when I was doing that study.
Right.
And I tell you what, holding yourself accountable to the 4 absolutes, like you will grow.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge part of our program.
Wait, absolutely?
Yeah, shut the fuck up, man. Anyway. So, right. Yeah, you know, I mean, the first 7 years of pretty much of my sobriety, every Saturday I went to a 12, 12, and 4 meeting here in Cleveland, and we did the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and the 4 absolutes. We rotated every week, and I did that. And yeah, I mean, there is. Have you ever seen the absolute pamphlet?
I don't think I have.
Okay, that is a Cleveland thing. If you flip over on the back, it says Cleveland Central Office on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you write. And anyone else out there, if you write the central office here in Cleveland, you can get one of those pamphlets. And it's kind of like the 12 and 12, only for the absolutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know what? I don't know. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to that. And maybe this is ego, but I'm supposed to speak next Friday at a meeting, and I was like, man, that's what I should talk about. is the 4 absolutes. If people don't know about this, you know, maybe I should educate them.
You know what?
Yeah.
Well, and
spread the word.
Yeah, and they told us right off the bat, you know, that it was something that, I mean, the steps can be, to anyone, the steps could be overwhelming. You know, so in my opinion, and for as much as it helped, I know both of us to begin with, even though the whole idea of absolute honesty and all those sort of things, but Mike's got the best saying that, again, we figured out clearly we stole all these things, but in that situation of, you know, your wife or your girlfriend, does this make me look fat type of thing, is, you know, honesty without love is cruelty. So it, you know, it goes together. So you've got honesty and, you know, love in the absolutes. You got to think about both. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with not trying to, we're not supposed to hurt people's feelings. We're just supposed to be honest about ourselves and our actions, you know? You don't have to walk up and say, by all means, I think you're a dick and you're fat.
Right.
Even if it's true, but, you know, I was talking about Mike with that, so.
Right, exactly. And you know, I know the word absolute people get hung up on, but these are ideals. These are things that we're trying to live up to. We're never going to achieve them. We're not going to be perfect. We're humans. You know, these are things that, for me, the absolutes are a filter. that I try to run everything through. Is it honest? Is it unselfish? Is it pure? And is it loving? And if it meets those criteria, then I can go ahead and do whatever the hell it is that I'm trying to do. If it doesn't meet that criteria, maybe I better back off and look at it and take a minute and go, wait a minit, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Right.
That's all it is, man.
Yeah.
You know, the word absolute throws people out. It's an ideal. It's something to try to be, not gonna be.
And it's like the steps are. It even says it. There's the 12 suggested steps. You know, they're not hard and fast rules. So it's the same. It is the same mindset. But yeah, I mean, my God, I might give, in my opinion, probably give a great topic. You know, as far as something to lead on or something to talk to people about.
No, yeah, for sure.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the like the approaches they grabbed from the Oxford group,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
No, you're correct. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, there I said. Now I said it, Mike. Absolutely.
No, you said it. I know. I just let it go.
And you, for whatever reason, left it alone, right? Ooh, because you're better than me. All right. So, Gio, give us a little wrap up again, because I mean we're a little over. We're about an hour 4 right now, which is not bad. We're right in our normal realm here. But what I want to do again is talk about the title of the book, where they can find it, what your deal is on it, and that sort of thing. Once again, we'll put information, anything that you send me, Gio, we'll put up on our website on the sponsor page just so everyone knows. But let's get this out here one more time about your book.
Okay, sure. So the title of my book is Fear, Face Everything and Rise, and it's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. This month I have a special because it's a Recovery Awareness Month. Basically, the book is a very thorough fear inventory mixed with some trauma work. Basically stuff I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, plus as a therapist. I provide the formula in chapter 1, and then the rest of the book is basically my story. Mm-hmm. And I use my story for, the purpose for people to read it and kind of identify like with their lives, and just kind of use it to look and see how we've lived in fear for so long, and how we can be free by just overcoming the fear by identifying it and working on eliminating it.
Right.
You mentioned the 4 absolutes. If you can actually probably use the 4 absolutes to measure it up to the fear once you identify where that fear comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Absolutely.
There I said it again. God, now I'm gonna hit myself.
Yes, you did.
I'm gonna hit myself every time I say it. Definitely get the word "definitely" in my mind. But seriously, Gio, thank you very, very much. And what I'm going to do this, and you see how we promote these episodes throughout the week. I'll continue to do that. I'll obviously link your Instagram page. Once again, get the stuff to me. I'll get it up. I know I keep saying it, but we want to be able to help. I mean, you've been this has been great. I mean, I think it's been a great conversation. So we want to be able to.
I definitely.
We want to be able to help you out with the book, and anyone who listens to this, visit our Instagram page if you want links to Gio's Facebook page, and then visit our website. We'll have that up as soon as he gets it to us. Then we'll get that information up on there, and help support him. So. Cool. So here's how have you listened to the end of our episodes before, Gio, or no, or just kind of?
I would put them on while I was at work, and then I only have so much free time, so I don't think I've ever got to.
Okay, well, so there's 2 things that you're about to hear. First of all, I always ask Mike, anything else on your mind?
Not a goddamn thing.
Now that is normally his answer. Now Mike says something. He's going to say something really nice, and then he's going to get a little mouthy right at the end. So don't let it surprise you. But so Mike, go ahead and wrap up.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. We want to absolutely thank Gio for coming on and sharing his experience, strength, and hope with us, especially the hope part. Be kind to each other this week. Be good to each other. Do something nice for somebody else. And as always, please, fuck off.
See, that's the ending that you miss. Well, I listened back to some of the episodes, Mike. I think you started doing that on like episode 4 or 5, because you said something super nice on like episode 3 or 4, and then it was like that whole thing. I'm like, you're gonna have to remember that, and then finally you're like, the first thing that comes into my mind is to tell people to fuck off.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So then,
I told you my thoughts are awful.
So that's Gio. You've just got to be part of that. We do it on every episode, so it always cracks me up. So
Well, I'm honored to be part of that.
Thank you so much for being here, Gio. We do
No,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah,
guys.
Gio.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Once again, we truly appreciate it, and we'll get all that stuff up there, and then we'll get that taken care of. So, I think we're all good. Mike, love you, brother. Gio, thanks again.
Love you too.
And
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
guys. Good night.
All right, good night.
Bye.
As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.